Hey everyone, it's Daniel. I thought today I would try being a tiny man in the corner of the screen, and I guess we'll see how that works. But what I'm trying to do today is a little development blog. Is that the word? I don't know. I asked on Steam if people wanted to know what was going on weekly, and I got like 4 thumbs up, and I was like, okay, great, I'll try doing that. So here we are. So this week I did a couple things. First of all, I did a lot of work on the editor. You see on the screen, I wrote this list. I was like, oh, I'm going to talk about all this stuff, but in reality, it's not all that interesting. If you want to see that, you just look at the patch notes. But I think the point is that I am still working on the editor, and I'm going to keep working on it. We'll see how that goes. I'm really excited in creating, a tool that people can use to create content. In fact, for the first time, I got to play content that somebody else created, which is pretty cool, although it was too hard for me to do. Frustrating, but all right. I don't know, whatever. If I didn't suck at my own game, I guess I could. Another thing I wanted to talk about was more music for the game. Like, can I add, or what would it take to add more music to like the base game? The truth about that is it's extremely, number one, time consuming for me. Number two, expensive just to get licenses, and I thought it might be useful to talk about like how much work it takes just to get original music for a game like this, and not just original, but also like key sounding and all that stuff. Just finding people who are willing to work with me as far as like getting all their stems and etc. It's actually a lot of work, and then for me to create all of the content, it's a little bit difficult. Like I said, like I played someone else's content and it's way too hard for me, so I feel like I'm almost like out of touch already with how to, like, I don't know, with the game. It's a little bit weird. Like, I made a bunch of content in the last update that I just cannot do, and that's why I really want to focus on content creation tools, because then people who are actually good at the game can create some content. And that brings me to the next point. I want to add Steam Workshop support so that if you do create some custom content, you can upload it to the workshop and other people can get at it easily. And I can even put facilities in the game to like list that stuff. That's a lot more interesting to me than for me to sit there and add new content myself, right? And I guess I want to talk about as far as the editor, there's some requests for like making things look more interesting, which I think is a good idea. And my thoughts about how things should look might not be the same as what a lot of other games are trying to do as far as looking really flashy and interesting. For some reason, with this game, I really wanted to feel like you're in like an actual place. Like, that's why it all kind of looks like an actual real place that you're in, all these different environments. Like, I just wanted to have a sense of place and not just like, oh, I'm in some kind of like digital, like, I don't know, trippy zone, A lot of games do that, like Amplitude or even like Sound Voltex. It's just like you're just floating through some weird digital space. But I wanted it to be like, okay, we're in this actual place. Anyway, so it's a possibility that I can work on that kind of theming and stuff that people can play with some more. Let's see, there's a bug that's not interesting. Actually, no, let's talk about that. There's this dedicated hyper button bug. It wasn't working. The reason why I added that was because I was looking really into accessibility. So you say that accessibility issues a while ago, and one of the guidelines is that you shouldn't have to hold down buttons, because some people can't do that. And so I added an option for that tap to boost where you don't have to hold the boost button, you can just tap it, and so I needed a different way to use the hyper ability. And some people even, I don't remember who, but actually even requested that, like, can we just use a different button? I mean, my idea for the boost and hyper, the reason honestly why I put them both on the same button, it was kind of because playing the game, there's already so many inputs that almost felt like I'm playing like Mavis Beacon teaches typing, where I'm like, oh god, which button do I press? So that's why I kind of put them on the same button to begin with. I like how it feels, but anyway, there was a bug with that. The next big thing I did this week is I worked on a new build for the demo, and the reason why was because I was trying to support Sound Voltex controllers, which has kind of been a sticky issue for me in the past. Like, believe it or not, I really didn't develop this game in the first place to support those types of things. Like, honestly, the number one thing I wanted to support was just gamepads and keyboards, because I was like, okay, how do I make a cool rhythm game that really just works with what people already have? I think I succeeded, but the way it evolved was kind of like rhythm games for, I don't know, they like Amplitude or whatever, they use the shoulder buttons and the triggers, and it works really well. And I decided, like, what can I add to that? Because I like games that have a lot of buttons to push, so I added the either the A and the D-pad down, and then also the thumbsticks for the zigzag lines, as I call them, and it wound up looking like 99% like Sound Voltex, which I'll call it a happy accident, and that's kind of why some of the charts in the game are things that you technically can do on a gamepad, but not like on a Sound Voltex controller. I honestly, it's a little bit weird, isn't it? But however, I thought, you know what, if people have those controllers, and I keep seeing these comments like, oh, make it compatible with those and all, oh, it's so much more interesting. And so I have been working on Sound Voltex controller support. Most of them use mouse inputs. I think there's still a lot of work to do on those, and I've actually given away a lot of keys to people who have those controllers, but I kind of thought, you know, why don't I just create a demo? There actually is a demo on the IndieDB website, but hasn't been updated for a long time. So this week I kind of updated the demo, got it up to date. I posted a new build on Steam, and that in itself is like an entire day's worth of just busy work, just getting something on Steam. But I'm actually kind of happy that I went through it, because I have to do that whole thing again for the soundtrack. That's the next thing I wanted to talk about. Might even be able to, God, I don't know. I haven't got a whole lot of work done on this soundtrack, and a lot of people have asked, like, we want a soundtrack, we want to buy it, we want to listen to all these tracks. I understand that, and I have been working on it a little bit. I don't necessarily just want to release all these shortened mixes of the tracks. And a lot of the licensed music probably isn't going to be on there, just because when I originally created the contracts and stuff to license them, I honestly didn't even consider that there would be a soundtrack and that I'd sell it. But I feel like even to sell it on Steam, which is technically a part of the game, which I license the game, I don't know, I want to get permission to license the tracks. I probably should show you this shit, but let's see. Most people are cool with me using their music in the game, which is in a soundtrack, which is pretty cool. Some people I just haven't been able to get in contact with, or they say, well, I want some kind of royalty, and that's totally fair and fine. I'm 100% okay with being fair to people that I'm licensing stuff from. However, if you're a one-man operation, it's a bit tricky. Like, how do I plan to, like, you know, if I sold X number of copies and I owe someone X number of dollars, I need to pay them, like, is it monthly, or, you know, I just have to figure all that out, and I just don't know if that's going to wind up really happening. So I guess the point is I might not have every licensed track on the soundtrack, but I will definitely have most of them will be on there, and all the originals will be on there, because I own those tracks outright. I didn't create them, but anyway, that's a bit of an update on the soundtrack. As far as the soundtrack, it's really just a lot of busy work that I have to sit down and do. I have to, like, sit down, I have to open up FL Studio, I have to sit there and kind of mix those things and make them sound good. Some of them don't sound that great, honestly. The way they are in the game right now, I'm not happy with them. I want to make them sound good, extend them out a little bit, and that's basically the bottleneck with the soundtrack thing. And it's not going to be free. I would like to add that as something that you have to buy on Steam. It won't be expensive. It'll be cheap. I actually read that it's a really good idea to put a soundtrack or something else on the Steam page and then create a bundle that has, like, oh, you can buy just the game or the game and a soundtrack. And somehow, mentally, if people see two options, they'll go, oh, I'm going to be smart and get the cheap option. And I don't know, somehow that results in more sales. I don't know how, but anyway, it's a work in progress. It'll get done at some point. I think that's it. How interesting is this? I'm trying to, like, think of, is that all I need to say? But yeah, that's it. That's a development blog, isn't it? Right? I just made it, right? Anyway, thanks for watching this far, if you did, and I'll see you next time. We'll see. Bye.